Good evening, ladies and gents, wherever you may be around the world, and welcome to Splendid Isolation number 282. We've been doing this for a while now. And also, we never have a 13 stream on this channel, so you won't be able to find stream 13 or 113 or 213. I don't do them. I'm enough of a sailor to be that superstitious. So there we go. As always, to give people time to join the stream, I'm going to start us off with a tune.
Take up the white man's burden, send forth the best ye breed. Go bind your sons to exile, to serve your captives' need, to wait in heavy harness on flooded folk and wild. Your new gods sullen peoples have devil and have child. Take up the white man's burden, in patience to abide, to veil the threat of terror and check the show of pride. By open speech and simple, 100 times made plain, to seek another's profit and work another's gain. Take up the white man's burden, the savage wars of peace, fill full the mouth of famine and bid the sickness cease. And when your goal is nearest, the end for others sought, what's love that heathen folly, bring all your hopes to naught. Take up the white man's burden, no tawdry rule of kings, but toil of servant sweeper, the tale of common things. The ports ye shall not enter, the roads ye shall not tread. Go make them with your living and mark them with your dead. Take up the white man's burden and reap his old reward. The blame of those ye better, the hate of those ye guard. The cry of those ye humor are slowly towards the light. Why brought ye us from bondage, our loved Egyptian night? Take up the white man's burden, ye dare not stoop to this, nor call too loud on freedom to cloak your weariness. By all ye cry or whisper, by all ye leave or do, the silent, sullen people shall wail gods and you. Take up the white man's burden, have done with childish days, the lightly proffered laurel, the easy ungrudged praise. Come thou to search your manhood through all of thankless years. No age with give or wisdom, the judgment of your peers. Take off the white man's burden through all of thankless years.
And that was Chris Gard. If you like good music, go and check out his YouTube channel. He has lots of good stuff there. I'm going to start off by doing a bit of admin. Guys, our history stream on Wednesday last week, Wednesday if you're in Britain, that is, was on the far left organization Hope Not Hate. And I did that with Adamant, who I don't think is going to be able to join us this evening, sadly. And it was good, I thought. We are going to do a part 2 of that because we didn't get through the whole traitorous story of Hope Not Hate. And in part 2, we might even have Horus joining us as well. So that will be good. Also, if you would be so kind, please hit the thumbs up button and like the stream. It really is the easiest thing you can do if you like our streams, to get YouTube to put it out to more people. And you can also support this channel via Subscribe Star, which is pinned at the bottom of the chat on YouTube. And it costs you a whole $5 a month, for which you will get between 8 and 10 streams, depending on how I feel and how much I'm at home. But certainly 8 usually. All right. So that would be nice if you do any of those things, guys. Mercian, I believe you had a first topic for this evening.
Yeah, I'll take restore hit pieces for 500. Specifically the Julia Hartley Brewer interview, and we talked before this stream. I shouldn't have been that shocked by a reaction, but something deep down, it has really perturbed me about the whole thing. I don't know how to go on from it, but it's kind of, I would expect anyone, even in the centre, to understand the issue of demographics. I understand far leftists can't be.
Mercian, it's about queuing. It's about queuing and being polite. That's what makes you British. It's not blood and ancestry and having, like, I'm sure all 3 of us on this stream, ancestors who have fought, been maimed, and been killed for Britain and the armed forces. It's not about that. It's about queuing.
Well,
British values, they're queuing, you know.
As long as the diversity queues. Sorry, I
was going to say, unfortunately, the masses are totally brainwashed, and it is the legacy of the World War II narrative. Anytime you, I mean, as you'll see when Mercian gets into the topic, anytime you bring up the demographics of any country, any European, bear in mind this European country, any other country, including that one, you know, anything else, because there is one country that can care about its demographics, and that doesn't get the stick that others do. But
this is a small Middle Eastern country, isn't it, mate?
Yeah, exactly, and
which gets lots of aid and money from America. Yes,
yeah,
indeed.
And even in, you know, formerly where you lived for a bit, South Africa, you know, it was seen as like, you know, Pan-Africanism, Africa for the Africans. You know, if you're white, well, you should go back to Europe. So there is like this. I mean, it's just totally anti-white, but also it's a way of you know, attacking and denigrating and doing down Europeans. And you know, you have like, I mean, I'm actually tempted to just buy up the domain title for Hate Not Hope. I'll just create a rival where I point out leftist anti-white, treacherous anti-white figures and policy. And
well, I will, in connection with South Africa, I'll just mention Joe Shlomo, who was an ANC communist, and Joe Shlomo's family were refugees from Europe who the South Africans accepted prior to World War II.
Big mistake.
South Africa was one of the few countries that took loads and loads of Jewish refugees from Europe who were trying to escape Adolf babes, you know. And as thanks for that, Joe Shlomo became one of the leading strategists in the ANC the African National Congress, which is that vile terrorist organization, and their terrorist wing, which was called Umkhonto Isizwe, the Spear of the Nation, which mainly killed black people, it has to be said. They did kill quite a few white guys, but they mainly used to kill blacks who didn't support the ANC. But that's the thanks that South Africa got for taking small hat refugees in the 1930s.
Yeah, and so whenever you actually bring up, and I watched a debate this week as well between I was on YouTube. It just came up recommended between Mark Collette and this fit person called Bob on like Speaker's Corner, some Christian guy, and if you want to like see some like the absolute state of some of our people, particularly people who say that they're on the right, the center right, he was basically advocating. He put forward.
You mean the Ziocon center, right? Don't you?
I know. I mean, quite honestly, I actually think they have. They're probably like 2 steps away from committing a mass shooting or some sort of schizo thing, because I mean, he just came out with some of the most insane stuff. I mean, forget about the historical inaccuracy stuff. He talks about Britain and all that sort of stuff, but it's like this bizarre. And it was who was it? It was Lawrence Fox who first came out with this a few years ago, where it was like we can. He would be happy for this country flooded with black Christians. This is the guy who was in the debate. Then instead of British like pagans like Thomas Rousel or something, and he even said he'd rather his daughter married a Congolese Christian than a white pagan or just a white atheist or agnostic or something. And an English
insane.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I know it's insane, and he was saying that unironically, and I mean, it's quite clearly he has like the moral syphilis, of course, that Bowden puts it as like liberalism. His brain has been rotted by liberalism. His version of Christianity is this brain rotted, rehashed Pentecostic, bizarre American Protestant, thing that's been rehashed through the system, and he's completely mad.
For sure. But I'm just conscious that we are both derailing Mercian a bit. So what I think we'll do is let Mercian expound for a while.
Oh yeah, sorry.
And then we'll come back to this from you and I's point of view.
Continue with this.
I guess I'm kind of deflated because I see the Julia Hartley-Brewer doing the Richard Tice boomerism of basically, I'll be dead before it's a problem.
More like Dewey Hartley-Brewer.
Listen, guys, as I was saying, I'm not sure if you joined us yet, AI, but as I was saying to Mercian before the stream, Julia Hartley-Brewer became popular 20 years ago. Basically because she was relatively right-wing and she had big tits, really. Like Julia Hartley-Brewer, when she did stuff, would always wear a low-cut dress. Always. Don't believe me? Go look it up. You can find many clips of her on YouTube. That's how she got well-known, because she's a chick. And I don't blame her for that. Women who take advantage of their bodies, that's fine. I'm not some prude. But the idea that she is some great thinker is somewhat exaggerated, shall we say.
I don't think she's ever read anything outside of like the journo sphere. I don't think she's actually read anything. I mean, she has like she's kind of like the living embodiment of slopulism, of slop things. It's gossip style politics. It's actually kind of one of the, I would say she embodies probably
there's so many of them, AI. There's Julia Hartley-Brewer, there's Nigel Farage's ex-girlfriend, what's her name, the blonde chick. There's the other blonde chick who is Tice's fiance, I believe, and they're all exactly the same. They're almost indistinguishable, really. apart from slightly different ages.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, and going back to and I see Lyndon Clarkson said about the person I was talking about, this the speaker's corner Bob. Well, is he really wrong? The thing is, you can believe in universal thing, and like she can believe in, saying, I don't think there's a, they're happy with globalism, like globalized citizens and free movement and all that. You can believe that, but where it all falls down, and the reason why there's so much, and that you have people across, our side of things who are vocal in this country and other countries on this topic is the reason we do bring up the state of Israel. I mean, it's not just to be edgy, but there is actually a point to this. Is the diaspora of Zionists, they operate as a total ethno-nationalist bloc for their people. And part of that in their country, of course, is demographic security for their own group. So that's why you have like the whole settlements in the West Bank and so on and so forth. And probably one of the reasons what they did with Gaza as well, because they understand themselves as a distinct demographic bloc who are out to do what they want to do.
But AI, everybody knows, right? What an Indian is. Pretty much they do, yeah?
Yeah.
Most people know what a
Japanese,
Nigerian is,
yeah,
a Japanese, an Egyptian. People know what all these races are. But for some unknown reason, when you are talking about Britain, and also this is also true of like most European countries and most white countries, I mean, people will argue this, from the same lefty center position about Americans, Canadians, Australians, New Zealanders, white South Africans. Everybody knows what somebody is, right? Except when you're talking about countries like Britain. And then all of a sudden it's, oh no, it's queuing. It's British values, whatever the fuck that means.
I would argue though it's even worse because I mean Julie Hartley-Brewer you can put under the reform camp. It is worse from that particular camp. Like you'd expect anyone on to be in. I mean they're basically leftists to me now, reformer. But you would expect them to. I always used to think that reformers are just people who didn't understand how wet reform are.
You have to, Mercy, and to be fair, you have to differentiate between the leadership of reform and the people who are second-tier leadership in reform and their base members. Many of the base members of reform basically agree with the same stuff that Restore says. But of course, they don't get a say in anything. And before you go on, Mercy, and can I just answer Woodpit? Woodpit is saying you should do a show about modern South Africa and your time there, politically, I mean, and also Rhodesia. Woodpit, if I can get Conscious Caracal to come on with me, I will absolutely do a stream about modern South Africa. But the thing is, you've got to remember, I left South Africa in 2000, and that was a quarter of a century ago. So if I was going to do something about modern South Africa, it would have to be with somebody like Conscious Caracal, because then he can talk about what things are like now.
That's about 6 years after the end of the well, I was going to say 6 years.
It was a bit more than that, but yes, it was roughly that. Yeah. And things were still relatively okay when I left. You could see how it was going. It was getting worse and worse, but it wasn't anywhere near as bad as it is today. And I've got to say, look, 3 of the white people I knew in South Africa have been murdered since I left. And they all lived in rural areas. So if anyone tells you that the farm murders thing is not true, I'm here to tell you it is true. and they all lived in and yes, Ernst Van Zyl is Conscious Caracol, by the way, Loaf at Sheffield. Ernst Van Zyl is Conscious Caracol, the guy I'm talking about. But yeah, he's really good. I suggest you go follow him on YouTube. You can also follow him on X on Twitter, where we are also live at the moment. But yeah, it's I'm happy to do that, but I would want someone like Ernst to join me to do it. Sorry, Mercian, please carry on.
Where was I? I was basically talking about. I'm just surprised about the treachery from the upper echelons of the Reform Party. I guess I'm trying to. It still shocks me. It shouldn't, but it does.
I think they're simply too scared of the mainstream media, mainly, to address the real issues. I mean, you know, if you're a British guy today, certainly if you're one of us guys who are on the right, there's only one real political issue in Britain today that really counts, and that is mass verbal immigration. And not just the illegal little boats from France, that's the minor bit of it. It's the massive legal immigration, and the fact that if Britain is going to survive as a recognizable Anglo-Celtic country, we have to have very large-scale deportations or remigration or whatever you call it. It must happen.
And also, I mean, this would be my topic when we get to it, Duke. But one also thing that's that goes a bit deeper than that is also the relationship between those in this country who advocate for mass immigration, who benefit from it, the businesses, and also people like private landlords. And we've seen in Norfolk, people organising actually are targeting those people who, not so much the migrants. I mean, you could say that's the low hanging fruit, but actually going after those who want to bring them here in the first place and actually financially benefit from it. And for me, that is kind of that's something I've noticed as well. And I don't know if you guys noticed this, that there is like it really started in Belfast with the targeting of the HMOs, which I think every council in the country has that, and you have those landlords, and maybe that's a legacy of what's because a few years ago that was sort of what's going on in the Irish Republic. So maybe that all coordination has spread. I don't know, but there is actually, I mean, I guess you could say in a truly revolutionary way, you do have like some organized level of working class people of from the lower classes actually going up against rich landlords. I mean, this is actually
one of the reasons for this, right? AI, and I know that the centre people and the liberal lefties, they like to talk about gammons and all this sort of bullshit bollocks. But one of the reasons it's the working classes who are actively protesting against this, usually fairly peacefully, it has to be said so far. The reason for that is it's the working classes who have to deal with it. Most of these champagne socialists, in Kensington and Chelsea and parts of Islington and wherever the fuck they live, these guys don't have to deal with that.
No.
It's your poor, not yet. Thank you very much, Mercy. But it's your poor working class areas that have to deal with it. I mean, Mitch is normally on this stream, and I hope he'll join us this evening. But Mitch will tell you, because he comes from not too far away from you, Mercy, and your areas have just been progressively flooded, basically.
Yeah, I mean, it was concentrated in Birmingham. I mean, I live in...
but it's spreading out from Birmingham.
That's I mean, I live in the Black Country. I live in one of the whitest areas of the Black Country, and as I spoke to you before the stream, when I was, because I live in the same area, I see school kids leaving the school I used to go to. When I was in that school, there was perhaps 5 or 6 diverse kids in the entire school, and I mean just my year. There was 1 or 2 diverse people in my year, but I think throughout, the years above, years below, you didn't see any diverse kids. When I see the rabble that come out of the school now, and admittedly, for the moment, when I see the diversity, they're usually queuing for the bus on the way to elsewhere. The amount of diversity I'm seeing, it just shocks me. It really does.
Look, let me tell you, Matthew, right? Like, as I say every week, I'm probably the oldest guy on this. Well, I am the oldest guy on this stream easily. And I was in a school in Peckham in London in the 1970s. And there were maybe 10 or a dozen black kids in that school. No Indians at all. No subcontinentals. Indians, Pakistanis, none of those. But there were about 10 or 12 West Indian kids. These days, if you go to Peckham, you will not see any white people at all. It's just totally black now. There are no white people. As far as I know, there are no white people at all in Peckham these days, basically.
No, and this is this is the future that I think it actually is. I know people will say, well, the left don't really care and there's nothing you can do about it. But I think even from their own sort of understand, the more that this happens, the more unruly and the more lawlessness that will spread among the native population. And there is like a sense of, well, and this is a tragic thing. When you look at political parties or support for the normally pro-British parties, pro-right-wing British parties, patriotic parties like Restore, and even when I say reform, from like the average layman's point of view, not ours, but from the average layman's point of view, you'll have places like even down in my neck of the wood in Devon, where it's still over 90% white, but they'll still be voting Labour and Lib Dem or Green. And you've had places as well where that has been the case going back 10, 20 years. And then suddenly when you have an influx from Asia or Africa or wherever, and then suddenly the population will start voting, or that you will have like uptick in UKIP or BNP back in the day. And it's kind of like the only way that they sort of, boot their drive into doing something, it's already what the barbarians are already like in the town itself, in the city. And that's kind of the tragic thing about that, that it has to get to that stage before people act.
The thing is, I think about there's still leftists in Birmingham. I want you to think, if you can. Do you remember when Sargon used to speak to this leftist Kevin? Someone, he was from Birmingham.
Kevin Logan or something like that, wasn't
it? Yeah,
it?
something like that. If you're familiar, like. It amazes me that even because it was 10 years ago, Sargon was talking to him. I don't know the last time he spoke to him was, because they used to every now and again they just interview each other, if you recall.
I remember. Yeah. I remember those streams. Yeah,
and it amazes me how there's still people like that in Birmingham. It's like how do you still exist?
I've got to say, like this stream has been going probably 6 years, maybe even slightly more than that now, maybe 7. And things have just got worse and worse and worse. And the covering up from the powers that be, the so-called authorities, has just got more and more. The censorship has got stronger and stronger. The lack of free speech in Britain has got stronger and stronger. And you know, if you're a normie, I just don't understand why you can't see this at all.
I think what I'd like to do at some point on my channel is I would like to explain why leftists think. I'm thinking about the Kevin Logan types, because there's a few people that I've seen on TikTok that I'm kind of interested in their leftist opinion on everything. Because the first one I saw, I don't know what the channel's called, but it comes up every now and again. He started complaining about the boomers, and I was like, oh, that's an interesting take on it. And then the more I listened to it, the more I realised, oh, this guy's a raving leftist. But his whole boomer take, so like he had quite a strong point on that. And then the more I've watched, it's sort of like, then he's defending the immigration, and we shouldn't be focused on immigration. I'm like, right, I'm interested in this guy. I might sort of do a video trying to explain why the leftists think what they think and why they vociferously think what they think, because the guy I'm following is very interesting to me.
I mean, what doesn't make sense about a lot of leftists is, and as I say, if you actually look at immigration, like the history of mass immigration in this country since the end of the Second World War, and actually look at it as like in the whole, as a policy, as how governments have instituted as a policy in this country and other European countries, it has been largely that what they would call the capitalist class, and it's been pushed by big industry, big finance as well. It's part of the freedoms of Europe, you know, trade and people and surplus. And you know, when you think about it, all these leftists, and Woodput says, you know, kill the landlords and everything. That's their slogan. They like to LARP as you know, Bolsheviks from the 1920s and what have you, as these revolutionary communist Marxist types. But when they're actually confronted with that big power, they, and I don't know if this is like a form of distant consonance or something like that, some sort of mental loophole that they avoid even thinking about. But they end up supporting, I mean, they are kind of, and we talk about the centre right being the most captured thing. I still say to this day that there is no real Marxists or communists today. Marx was very critical of mass immigration. If you actually read, I mean, Marx was, yeah, I think, what was it? He said
Marx was very critical of Zionism, but you know. Okay.
Well, yeah, he was, but he was very critical of immigration because he said that you know, that is like the late stage or the latter stage of you know, as he pointed out, that the capitalist class you know, sort of dividing up the worker. So there is like this bizarre thing, but from the leftist point of view, when I've seen people confront them and actually raise that point to them, they then go back to this hidden hand theory that actually no, to attack, because of course they have like this the international worker mentality, which they sort of this is how they sort of get back on top of it, and then they go around and say it's actually a conspiracy by, you know, the what was it, like the Murdoch media to divide up people. But my problem is, well, if you have different people from different corners of the planet coming here, they're already divided up. They already live in ghettos. So it's not like they can't, you all come here and we're all united and then the Murdoch divides us up. So that doesn't make any sense.
The idea that you can integrate tens of millions of people into a nation is just bullshit. You just can't do it. I mean, I'm not saying
centre right is what I would say to that. It's sort of like,
look, I'm not saying that you can't take 10 very carefully selected people per year into a country of 50 million people and largely integrate them, because you probably can if you select those 10 people very carefully, right? But you can't do it with hundreds, let alone thousands. You just can't. It's not possible.
The underlying point, it had to be a trickle, and as soon as they opened up the doors, it's well, look where we are. Look where we're heading. I mean, the South Africanization of us.
Guys,
I
we
saw.
we haven't seen anything yet.
Oh,
If you think some immigrants throw their weight around at the moment, and they do, right? Wait until the white British population is even 49%. And you haven't seen anything yet, baby. You haven't.
yeah. I'd be very interested in the leftist take at that point.
And look, guys, look, I will be long dead when this happens. Okay, I was born in 1965. I am not going to be around in 2066. No chance.
Well, in 2066, I guarantee you the leftists of that era will just turn around and say that, when you have people say, hold on a sec, in the 1990s, in the early 1990s, wasn't Britain like still over 90% white European, white English and British? And you'll have people leftists of that era in 2060 saying, no, that didn't happen. Because you see, they do this with history as well. Any history show, they always, it is like this the ethnic society that they want to project as normalized. And the problem is, it's people today like yourself, even me. I don't know about Mercer, because I do remember Britain before even the Boris wave and all that sort of stuff, and even and large and Blair's mass immigration. And people have memory. People remember what life was like. And the problem is, give it several decades, a lot when people start to die off, unfortunately, like
Well,
Duke and
yeah,
his generation.
AI, don't forget that the mainstream media, the likes of the Biased Brainwashing Corporation and all of our newspapers, etc., and Channel 4 and ITV and everybody else, they all basically lie about how Britain was created anyway, and this is part of the reason for the race swapping in historical shows is basic, and the fact that they will ban many older books from libraries and what have you, basically because they don't want younger people to be able to find this stuff out, and they certainly do not teach it in modern schools. British history is not taught in modern schools these days. All you get is a bit of World War One, bit of World War Two, and loads of stuff about Adolf Hitler.
The worst thing that,
and feminism, of course.
I tell you what, Duke, the worst ones when in 23, when Russia launched the invasion of Ukraine, that special operation.
22.
Oh, so 22 even 22. I actually, because I used to go to my local library before that, and they had a copy of War and Peace by Tolstoy. This great epic from the Russian perspective, Napoleon, about the several families, and
I actually have read that AI, and I've worked my way through it over. And I'm a quick reader, okay, I am. But that one took me a month or two, purely because there was bits of it that were great and bits of it I wasn't so interested in.
Is that a translation issue, do you think, or
no? It's just because I was less
into the romance.
I was less interested in the romance bits of it. The war bits were really good, and Tolstoy knew what he was doing because, of course, he'd fought in the Crimean War on the Russian side. He was in the Russian artillery.
Yeah, that's why a lot of the scenes were in Russian artillery. I never got to finish the book from that library because what had happened is I'd rent it, I'd get it up to a page, return it, and then I would try and sometimes I couldn't, I couldn't rent it out again, and maybe I'd go back a week later. When the conflict hit, the library, and this was universal because this council owned, and this happened to other libraries as well, as I found out, they removed all Russian literature. from the library.
Why? Why?
Because we're in solidarity with Ukraine. And bear in mind, these are the same
But
type of
what
lanyards
did that
wearing.
have to do with Tolstoy when Ukraine was part of Russia?
Well, this was during the manic period where everyone was waving Ukrainian flags, and again, you know, you know, sometimes the British public can really disappoint. They can be very disappointing people.
Yeah,
I
for
hate to
sure,
say it.
for
I
sure.
hate to say it.
Yep,
I
yep.
don't like saying it, but they can be disappointing. And quite frankly, a lot of them need a good slap around the head.
You've got
But
to, if in terms of normies, you've got to watch alternative media. If all you watch is the mainstream media, you are going to be brain dead, basically. Can I just say that Woodpit is saying modern medical technology will probably live until 120. I had a triple heart bypass about 2 years ago, mate. I am not going to live to 100, I guarantee you. But you know what? I've got some. And that gives me a really huge interest in the future. Right? I you know, my family line is not going to end with me. It's going to be my son. And I really, really worry about my son in the 2060s if Britain does become a minority Anglo-Celtic white British country.
Yeah, I know. When it comes to war and peace, as someone mentioned earlier, the thing about Russian novels is that you might have, let's say, a character with a name, let's say like Mikhail, which I suppose that's the closest form of my name in Russian, Mitchell, Mikhail. But for a name like Mikhail, there's like a dozen nicknames you can have for a guy with that name, and that's the thing about Russian names. There's so many nicknames. Whereas in English, for example, if you're called Jacob, you're generally called Jake or Mitch, or Mitchell becomes Mitch. Whereas in Russian, you might have a guy called Mikhail, and then he's got like half a dozen nicknames, depending on who's talking to him. So that's why Russian novels are so notoriously difficult, because you think, okay, there's a character called Misha, and then there's a character called Mishka, and you think they're two different people. And it turns out, no, they're just two nicknames for the same character. And it's like you have to compute that. That's why Russian literature can be so difficult for some people, because it's so many different nicknames for each character.
Isn't there, Mitch, isn't it even different what a mate will call you and what a chick will call you in Russia, I believe?
Yeah. I mean, for example, your mother will call you a different nickname compared to your father. He'll call you a different nickname. And same for your missus and so on, yeah.
All good to know when I inevitably get my Russian wife. But if I could just address Woodpit for a moment on that living to 120, I think Freddie Mercury put it best when he said, "Who wants to live forever?" I would certainly wouldn't want to live to that age. It's why I have kids. I say you live forever, kids.
I mean, in the Bronze
Age, up to a point, I agree with that. But I will tell you, Mercian, that the older you get, you know, is life as good when you get older as when you're younger? No. And look, don't get me wrong, I'm not elderly yet, but you know, I'm still kind of having fun. I'll stick around for as long as I can. Put it that way.
Well, don't get me wrong. I'm not wishing life away or whatever. But like, I think a natural kind of, you know, your natural, you know, if you live naturally and live to where you would have died is perfectly fine. I just put it that way.
Raw Biscuits is saying I am an OAP now. No, I'm not, mate. I couldn't retire for another 7 years. I'm not allowed to officially.
and no, certainly the rest of us and a lot of people in the chat perhaps will never get to retire. So that's
I don't even think I will, to be honest with you, Mercian. I'll be surprised if in 7 years' time there's a pension anymore, or if there is, it will be hardly worth having. You know,
it'll get to the point where you hope something goes wrong with you so you can stop There's something bleak for you. Hey,
Well, listen. I'm semi-retired because I had a triple heart bypass operation, and I just can't do the job I used to do. Can't do it. Not possible. Like I used to walk probably 10 miles a day doing my job. I struggle to walk a mile now.
They'll probably find a way of, sort of plugging our brains into a machine to be part of some AI superstructure at some point.
Yeah. I think Woodpit is right about this. You guys can tell me what you think because you're all Englishmen. I think Peggy is one of the things that Margaret would get called. My mother's name was Margaret, but I don't think anyone called her Peggy.
I think the weirdest one, like English name for me, is Audrey, because apparently Audrey is the Anglo-Norman way of saying Athelflaed. I don't know how you get Audrey from Athelflaed, which is an old English name.
But yeah, I did notice, Mitch, and you know much more about this than I do because you're into Old English. But I did notice that female Anglo-Saxon names were kind of versions of male Anglo-Saxon names, weren't they? Pretty much.
Yeah, certain endings were female coded. Like, for example, one comment, like, for example, let's say one city not far from me is Wolverhampton. Wolver comes from the old English name Wolfen, which literally, when you think about it, Wolfen literally translates like she who knows wolves, because wolf goes back. I mean, run comes from the word rune, which originally meant secret in English before rune meant what it does now. But like, you can, or it's like yeah.
But Hampton as well. Isn't that a Norman thing? The Hampton.
No, hamp is like ham, like it just means home, and ton means town. So Wolverhampton literally translates as Wolfen's hometown, because apparently there's a noble woman called Wolfen who created a city back in the 10th century, and that's where it comes from.
To get this a little bit back onto Bersian's topic, if an Englishman moved to India, I mean, for God's sake, I can't think why they would today.
Oh, George Orwell. I mean, he was born in India, but no one considers him Indian.
Yeah, well, yeah, George Orwell, Kipling, all these people, obviously. And, they were never regarded as Indians by the Indians because their parents were British and they were British ethnically. But what I'm trying to say is if an Englishman moved to India today, and I can't think any reason why they would, but if they did, or any other country.
Think about Dalrymple guy who wrote a book about how uniquely evil apparently the East India Company was, and all the Indian academics love him. I forget his first name. It's like Hugh Dalrymple or something like that.
I'll tell you why moved to India. Less diversity for a kickoff.
But there's diversity of a certain sort. But yes, diversity in the West doesn't really mean diversity is just a code word for anti-white, really.
Yeah.
It means no white people is what it means, or less white people. But my point is that if you moved as a white Anglo-Celtic British person to India or Nigeria or any other third world shell you care to name, there's no way you would be regarded as part of that country in terms of their nationality. You would not be. I'm sorry. You wouldn't. It's nonsense. But in Britain, we have the Julia Hartley Brewers of this world and many others who will turn around and say, oh, no, you can move to Britain. And it doesn't matter what your skin color is. It doesn't matter what your religion is. It doesn't matter if you fucking hate us, basically, although some of them won't admit to that bit. But you can be British. I mean, it's just bollocks.
Or you can be one
everyone knows it's bollocks as well. It's just common sense. It's crap.
Well, I mean, or you could be, let's say, one of these anti-white Indian types who spend their time loathing white people, but then when it comes to the bedroom, you end up getting colonized by a white guy. Because
Oh yeah, that's
Yeah.
a common trope. That's a common trope you see, isn't it?
Yeah.
A lot of the BLM activists who would like back end up. I remember that having white boyfriends.
yeah, because lately there was a Jamila Jamil person. I've never even heard of that woman's name, but anyway, she did some rant at Oxford about how much she hates the British Empire and saying we're uniquely evil. And it's like, well, but I mean, you get because there's plenty of people
Uniquely
like
evil, and yet we were the main guys
Jake,
who
we're uniquely
who
evil in her
stopped
eyes because we
slavery.
subjugated her people. Like that's
But
what makes it.
we were the guys who stopped slavery. The
And we don't
main
get
guys who stopped
okay.
slavery.
Okay, we should just castrated them, to be honest, because we don't get any thanks for it.
Oh, look, Mitch, I don't disagree with you. I think it was a waste of blood and treasure, frankly, because we get no credit for it at all. And yet thousands of British sailors and Marines and soldiers got killed doing it, mainly by tropical diseases, but also fighting. And of course, the British taxpayer was still paying for this shit in about 2010.
Yeah, because that's we're too nice. We're suckers. That's what we are. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
it's like you take, for example, William the Conqueror, right? He was brutal towards us, but no one has a grudge against the Normans to this day over it. Like,
Well,
he was quite
some of us do a little bit, but yeah, all right.
Well, I do, but I mean, I've largely gone over at this point.
No, I was going to say I do a little bit. But,
I mean, we don't. I think what Mitch was saying is we don't make it like our entire personality, like the Irish, like the Israelis, like other groups around the world who make it their all the like the Aborigines in Australia who make it their whole identity. They could pick something. A lot of people, you could just pick your own form. I mean, I think the fact that the Maori even make it their own identity as well, a lot of the politically activated Maori, is kind of pathetic. Bear in mind they like to present themselves as like these warriors and stuff, and they could still like present themselves in that way, but they choose not to. It's just crap, isn't it?
The Maori would be interesting because you can see the demographic security of New Zealand. I'd be very interested to know what they're going to make of the future of New Zealand.
Look, the thing is, it's so because I saw like I don't know, it's on somewhere like Instagram or TikTok. I saw this like Native American woman, and she looks like a buffalo more than an actual human being. But anyway, the thing about her is, she spends her time going, oh, well, white people took over the land and they took it through, like, scrapping all these treaties and agreements. And it's like, and I'm not being funny, like, when you look at
conquerors do, it's what conquerors do.
Well, it's not even that. It's like, so the Comanche, for example, like, there's a story about a girl called Matilda Lockhart. She was taken when she was 11 years old. 5 years later, the Comanche, they offer her up as a part of negotiation, as like a hostage thing. But the thing was, the Comanche, their concept of taking prisoners is if you take someone prisoner, you're allowed to do whatever you want to them. So they'll cut off your nose, cut off your ears. They'll do shit like that, like burn up or put your skin, especially for women. They're known for doing that.
Yeah, so and also they were a slaving tribe, which many Indian tribes were, by the way, with their own people, not only white people.
Yeah, it's like the Sioux tribe that beat Little Bighorn. They weren't native to the land they were on at that time. Like the Black Hills of North Dakota. Someone might correct me in chat. It's like
it was certainly Dakota. Yeah,
yeah. I keep thinking Montana for some reason, but yeah, they were originally from Minnesota before they got chucked out by another tribe who came from the Great Lakes. Like that's just the history.
And then they found horses, which got into America via the Spanish conquistadors. This is where the Mustangs came from. And the Plains Indians, who had this buffalo hunting culture and, horse riding and all the rest
Navajo,
of it. All of these tribes that were famous in the Wild West movies and things, they were only able to do that because of the Spanish conquistadors. Because there were no horses in America before that. Like America had proto horses in the in prehistory, but they died out.
Yeah,
I mean,
sorry.
speaking of the Americans, particularly like the South and Latin Americans, my favorite thing about their demographics is they talk about like all the conquerors and everything and what they did to them. It's sort of like, yeah, but you are the conquerors. You are the descendants of the conquerors. You're not the purely the native people there.
Well, what's ironic is,
amusing.
I mean, one trope you'll find is, so in Mexico, the browner someone looks, like the more mestizo they are, the more they'll LARP as conquistadors. But then the whiter they are, especially the women, the more they will LARP as Aztecs. Like that's funny.
It's so fucked up down there.
So, for example, if Nick Fuentes still lived in Mexico, his younger sister would be LARP as an Aztec by now. Like if that family still lived in Mexico.
And Nick Fuentes would be laughing as a gay Aztec. Sorry, I shouldn't have said that, but yeah.
Well, it's like, yeah, that's the thing. It's like in the case of, I mean, when you look up, well, yeah, it's just a matter of you do. In the case of the Maori, I mean, it's like the Aboriginals. What are they largely known for these days? Well, as you, I mean, the Maoris, they've got a high rate of drug abuse, alcoholism, and beating up their wives. They're not. I mean, it's like I saw one scene from an American.
Sounds very like the Aboriginals. I gotta say, Mitch.
Yeah, but the only thing is that the Maori, I think the average IQ is a bit higher, so they don't sniff.
Oh yeah, no, it is.
But yeah, other than that, I mean, I gotta be honest, like, because that's the thing. It's funny how we whites, especially us Anglos, we raise people higher than we rate themselves. Like, for example, Maori. If you ask your average Englishman, what do you think of a Maori? They'll largely think of like a warrior culture. Most still, like, you'll find plenty of videos of a haka dance, which are quite popular.
Yeah,
and then you've got
Mitch. Look, to be fair, okay, the Maoris were in the 19th century. They were brave warriors, and English and British soldiers said so. Right?
Okay, look at the descendants.
They did.
All fat, lazy drunkards. Like,
listen, I'm not disagreeing with you, mate. I'm saying where that came from was originally in the 19th century. Like, and the Brits were fighting the Maoris from the 1840s up to the late 1860s. Okay, and the British soldiers did admire Maori bravery. They did, and they admired their skill in fortifications and their use of firearms, which they used all the time.
Yeah, but my point is, we're the only people ever that actually give a shit about these other cultures.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no. If the Maoris had won, right, the British would have been portrayed as fucking fuckwits, basically.
Yeah, but that's my point, though, isn't it? It's like, for example, the Zulu language. You take the Zulus, right? The only reason we know anything about their language is because an Afrikaner wrote a dictionary about their language. The Zulus didn't give a damn about literacy until we taught it them. Or you take a look.
100%. And I'm not sure it was an Afrikaner. I think it was actually an English bishop. But okay.
I thought it was an Afrikaner bishop, but I might be wrong.
No, he was English. Bishop Colenso, I believe. Who the town is named after.
Yeah, but yeah, points of stand is like when you look. I mean, you look up. Or it's like, one thing I find funny as well is like you'll get leftists like who will complain about how they'll talk about the royal family being Germans, but then as soon as Rupert Lowe says, okay, he doesn't think the royal family are actually British, they're all defending the royal family now as being quintessentially British.
Is leftism, as we know it, is that a white thing? I mean, I know that.
Yeah, I think it is.
Yes, it is. Yeah. Yes, 100%.
It's like the Chinese have a special word, boys, as well, to refer to them, because we don't have anything like that in their country. I mean, they're leftists are basically like Mao Zedong nutballs.
I mean, it's kind of is like I honestly, and I don't know. I know this is a bit of a cliche, but they are the ultimate LARPers because they will fly the red flag for revolution, but ultimately they are the ultimate, bitches for elites, financial elites, and capitalist elite. They don't even believe their own bullshit. a lot of them, they do not believe they're in bullshit, and a lot of them are. I mean, a lot. If we're absolutely honest, a lot of these people, when they get into power, they just become bourgeois capitalists themselves. There is no ideological coherence with these people. And that's why a lot of the revolutionary Marxists and stuff, people who were genuine, have sort of like quit, or they've sort of gone off the rails, because a lot of them have realised that their own side are just morons. I mean, the fact of the matter is, my generation of leftists spent their formative years on these sort of bohemian policies of like trannyism. That's like, who gives a fuck? Like, we want to talk about
AI. Can I just answer
ship of
Tugflip?
the state and the private sector?
Just to answer Tugflip in the chat, Zulus are not even from South Africa. This is correct. Nor are any of the Bantu tribes, who are all of the black people in South Africa today. None of them are from South Africa. The Bantu originated in Central East Africa, and over hundreds and hundreds of years gradually migrated down the east coast of Africa and eventually spilled into South Africa. And they did that by the time they got to South Africa. The Dutch had by this time occupied the Cape. They'd occupied Cape Town. The ancestors of the Afrikaners, and the Zulu killed, like the other Bantu tribes. They all did the same thing. The Zulu killed off the Bushmen, who are the Khoisan, as Woodpit says in the chat. The Khoisan were basically the Bushmen. These days, the only place you'll find Bushmen is in a few places in the Kalahari Desert and Swapo in Southwest Africa, what is now Namibia, are doing their best to genocide them. But I mean, no one talks about that because, black people don't do genocide. Of course they don't, except in Rwanda and Burundi and many other places. But, whatever. But no, let me finish. So the Zulu, no, they're not South African. And the Zulu used to kill off the Bushmen, the Khoisan, and the reason we know they did is because they would take the women as slaves. And Zulu has loads of tongue clicks in it. So like the Zulu king at the time of the Anglo-Zulu War in 1879 was Atwayo. Yeah, Atwayo. And that tongue click is a Khoisan thing. And the reason the Zulus use it is because it got into the Zulu language for all the slaves they took from the Bushmen, who they otherwise wiped out. So, the idea that white people are uniquely evil, and the Zulus were an empire who expanded by conquering and butchering the people around them. You can't really argue, Shaka Zulu, Tugflip. But you can't argue that the Zulus were any better than the British. They were just doing the same thing on a smaller scale, basically, as people always do,
Yeah, you tend to find that people of darker complexion, like native only applies to people of darker complexion. I'm thinking about black people trying to own Egypt as well, like even the I guess it's more Arabic sort of population in Egypt these days. But that wasn't always the case either.
No, absolutely. I mean, the Egyptians were much less dark before the Muslim conquests. The whole of North Africa was much less dark before that. In terms of skin coloration, I mean.
Yeah, but this is how it all starts. It's sort of. I think that you could convince any Gen Alpha that basically, if you're not black in anywhere in Africa, that then you shouldn't be there. I'm talking Egypt, Morocco, South Africa. You could easily teach us, and they would believe it and defend it vociferously.
And it's all bullshit, basically, Marcian. It's all lies and historically totally inaccurate.
Yeah.
It's just
Mind,
bollocks.
mind you, you could probably teach that to some boomers, and they'd probably believe that as well.
It's insane, though, mate. It's historical nonsense.
It's amazing how illiterate people are, Like
it's like this crappy Christopher Nolan film, which I'm never going to even bother watching it. I'm not even going to pirate it because I'm not interested because I know it's crap. Helen of Troy, who in reality was Helen of Sparta, of course, because she was the wife of the Spartan king. She was known for her white flashing arms and her golden hair. She was not a Bantu.
Oh God, yes. Like I said on one stream, the face that launched 1,000 dredgers. God almighty.
Well, as I said, I said she was the face who launched half a rowboat, basically. But yeah, all right.
Yeah. Well, Hollywood is a separate matter. I don't really know what to do with.
Well, it's more propaganda, Mercian. It's more anti-white propaganda, and if you're honest, you have to say that quite a lot of it is small hat propaganda because we know who runs Hollywood, for God's sake.
Well, this is a problem, though, isn't it? This is what I mean by you could easily convince even boomers or what's left of the silent gen that you could just get Hollywood to put out a movie and cast any Egyptian as any sub-Saharan African, and they believe that Egypt is full of sub-Saharan Africans. It would be quite easy to do. And that's the power of Hollywood.
Well, and also for anyone who's in a Western nation, 20 years of brainwashing and bullshit at school, because all teachers' unions, without exception, are lefty. All of them. There's no exception, and they all basically just lie about history. And as Lofa Sheffield says in the chat, it's all anti-white propaganda. But I mean, you could say that about most mainstream British TV series, most mainstream Australian TV series, and all the adverts. They're all anti-white propaganda, basically. This is why in adverts, like almost every couple is mixed race, when in reality that's just not true.
See, this is what I'd like to ask any leftist, is sort of the whole anti-white thing. Will there ever be a point where the pendulum will have to swing the other direction? I'd like to see their brains process that.
I think they're self-hating, Mercian. I really do. I think they're self-hating. They're so dumb that they swallowed all this propaganda when they were at school and college and what have you, and they just swallowed it, and they're dim. They're midwits, at best.
Yeah. But I mean, the only reason I ask that is because, like, if the left are currently anti-white and everything, and they're pushing for it, they must believe that one day that equality will happen or equity will happen or whatever the hell I want. And they also must believe that the pendulum can swing a bit too far on that, and that there will have to be some kind of adjustment to get back to the equality they envision? Or do I think it's just the pendulum's never going to stop? And white people will always be in charge.
Yeah,
Mercian,
it's like you think that like in Trotskyism, you have the idea of a permanent revolution, like the Soviets themselves back in the 80s. They said the revolution will never end. That kind of mindset.
Guys, do you really believe that these white people want some sort of level playing field, equality? They don't. What they want is for us as European white people, they want us to be destroyed. That's what they want. If you believe anything else, you're a moron. I'm sorry.
I think it's actually a bit simpler than that, though. A lot of them are just narcissists. A lot of them, it's performative. A lot of them also are just, I go back to LARPing, but a lot of them are just genuinely doing it because they want to play the revolutionary communist role. They want to be the revolution. They want to be the rebel. They want to be the rebel in Star Wars. They want to be the rebel.
But AI, if you're a real revolutionary rebel these days, you'd be with us because we're the real revolutionary side now. But the left are the mainstream now.
Well, I think we've given the title "Champagne Socialists." That they want to do the whole revolution thing in perfect comfort. That they don't want to bleed for their cause. That they'd want to push against the open door and get a pat on the head for it.
Yeah,
it's like I'm not being funny, but like the country is in a bad state as it is, and these people don't seem willing to ever confront the idea that their ideology has led us to this point, has led us, like, they'll still keep saying, oh, well, it's because of Murdoch media, or we're living under far-right governments, and like, they'll say Keir Starmer's far-right, or whatever. That's what they'll say. Because they just don't accept.
They do honestly believe, like they'll say the Labour Party even now is, and the reason they'll say that is, well, or the Labour Party under Burnham, all the front bench are friends of Israel. And when they even criticise Israel, they say that Israelis, like Netanyahu, they're white. But they're not white. They can't be white because they're not European. And
AI, let's also remember this, right? Half of these lefties are, they support gays and lesbians, gay marriage, LGBTQ, child abuse of using puberty blockers on kids. They support all this shit, right? And even if, right, you're going to argue, Burnham and the Labour Party are too pro-Israeli, do they think really that any of these things would be supported by the enemies of Israel? Because, I guarantee you, if you go to a lot of Arab countries as a gay guy, the best you can hope for is being thrown off a 5th-story building roof, And don't get me wrong. I am not supporting gay guys here. I'm just pointing out the hypocrisy of the left's position. Okay, it's just bollocks, basically. It's like moronic.
Well, see, a lot of there is like this sort of popular myth, particularly in the Arab world, so among leftists within the Arab world, like particularly like Palestinians, Iraqis, Syrians, and Arabians, that homosexuality, and Egyptians, the homosexuality before the 19th century was perfectly illegal in the Arab world and the Ottoman Empire, and it was actually the Europeans after in the 19th century that banned it. I'm not even joking. There are that's like a mainstream view that in the Islamic world.
AI, right? We've spoken on this channel before about those poor little boys in countries like Pakistan and Afghanistan,
Yes.
who are exploited and abused by richer people in those countries, and how British and American soldiers complained about it when we were in Afghanistan and were told to ignore it because it didn't suit anyone's agenda. We've spoken about this, so yeah, sure.
Yeah, and of course that is like the I guess that's sort of like the general sort of view on it. Now, of course, there's a bit nuance to the when you say him, it wasn't consensual, and also it was like paedophilia. But the left have a very interesting relationship with paedophilia. And the thing
Well,
is,
they have a very close relationship to pedophilia.
Yeah.
Would be more accurate.
yeah, and the thing is,
they are.
they use obviously the term like Epstein class to attack. Particularly, I think it was originated in the United States to attack Republicans and supporters of Trump, and now it's being used in this country as well by sort of leftists and people who are anti-Zionist. But the thing though is, you know, you're using the term Epstein class. I would say, and I'm gonna, and this isn't me defending Epstein on anything, okay? So I don't want this to be misconstrued. But I will say this: you cannot compare the likes of grooming or the more savage murder rapes that you've seen in Europe to what Epstein did on the island. I'm sorry, but you cannot compare the savagery and I'm not saying that it's none of all of it's bad for different reasons and for the same reason. It's all terrible, but if you are standing there, at least we're being honest. We say we hate both these fuckers equally, and both of them should be given. Both of these people and people who defend them should be facing a lot severe punishment than you have now. But you have the left who will openly embrace these people and also deny the grooming gangs, while calling people defenders of the Epstein class. I mean, give it a fucking break. You people would quite happily, because for them it's permissible when it's brown people doing it. When it's their brown clown friends doing it, they see that as perfectly fine. And that is
another telling thing, AI, is that the same lefties, and they are always lefties, not only support pedophilia and like lowering the age of consent, they also support sex with animals being legal, right? The same people, always, because they're scumbags, basically.
They're just sick.
And
They're
don't
sick.
get me wrong, I think Epstein and his mates were scumbags. I also think they were a Mossad intelligence operation to get like power over powerful people. But I hate all of them, as I said. I just detest all of them.
Yeah. I think in another way, sort of like it's a bit like saying chlamydia the best of the sexually transmitted diseases. It's in the same sort of lines, isn't it?
Yeah, both of it's bad. But when you have people with one breath that will say you support, the Epstein and paedophilia and everything, you're, and then at the same time they're like, oh, I don't think we should allow people who come from countries where rape is normalized and they just murder and they see women as as just potential sex objects where they commit rape and murder. Those people in, and it's like, oh no, well, maybe they're traumatized. I mean, they give them every fucking excuse under the sun, traumatized by war and conflict and all that. And these and I've seen,
but that's
seen
not
same
true.
people.
They are simply barbarians, and that's the real thing. They're barbarians.
They are. They're literally.
If a woman in a very Muslim area of Pakistan or Syria or you name it is accused of being what's the word when you have sex with someone when you're married,
Adulterer.
Yeah, if you're a woman in a very Muslim area of Pakistan, Syria, you name it, and you are just accused of that. No proof. But two blokes come along and say, yeah, I saw it, or, I believed it. They can stone you to death. They're allowed to do that. Now, you know what? I'm no sort of feminist, as anyone who's watched my streams for a long time will know. I'm not. I think women do some very stupid things, especially Western women. But the idea that you can just accuse a girl with no proof whatsoever, and two blokes, and by the way, one bloke outweighs two women, yeah, and people will often call me a bit of a male chauvinist pig. Even I don't believe that's right. But yeah, they can bury you up to your neck in earth and chuck big rocks at your head until you're dead. If you're a girl in that situation, I don't understand how white Western feminists think that's okay, but many of them seem to.
Well, if we can bring it back to the original point about the centre right and Julie Hartley Brewer, I don't understand why the centre right and particularly people like Julie Hartley Brewer are trying to appeal to these people all the time.
Well, either they're dimwits, right, or they don't understand the result of it, which is going to be that Britain won't be British anymore. Because Britain's only British because of the British people. When the British people are not in charge of it, and they're barely in charge of it now, really, it won't be British anymore.
Well, it's globalists in charge. Like, where's the centre of globalism?
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, you probably saw Twitter over the last few hours, Mercian, and the other guys on the panel. And, we had Boris, who's never called Boris by his family. His family call him Alexander Johnson. No one calls him Boris.
Most people do, so that's why we have to call him it.
Well, but it's his political.
I can't repeat on
the
stream.
point is it's his political name, is my point. But anyway, he was there slagging off anyone who supports the real British people. And people are trying to get him back in power. Absolute scumbag, and people are trying to get him back in power.
Well, via reform, is it?
Well, it's that there is I think there's a good chance you'll see the parties trying. There'll be a reform, and I think Tory alliance, like a team up at the next general election. Because there'll be a there'll be this great
the thing that will ensure AI that reform do nothing, basically. If they link themselves to the zombie so-called Conservative Party, they won't achieve a single thing. And if they do that, no one on the right should even consider voting for them under any circumstances.
Right.
I mean, yeah, it would be it. Yeah, it would be bad if that was I guess
Yeah, I've got to go now, guys. But I'll leave you with this thought that reform basically have already brought in the Tory party. So
yeah, there's failed Tory ministers galore in reform for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose before I go, the whole Rupert Lowe sort of giving reform the 5 categories Like, I'll let you get into Perry. You just have to agree to these, and they still won't agree.
Yeah, he tried. He tried, and I think it was a genuine attempt. But Restore are a real British party, and Reform are not, basically.
Yeah. Oh, and I've got to go, guys. But
Thanks for joining us, Mercia. Before you go, plug your channel, mate.
Yeah. If anyone wants to subscribe to Mercian, I forget the code on YouTube. You usually link it anyway, don't you, Iron Duke?
Yeah. If you
Well,
put in Mercian, you'll find it.
yeah. What I might do that video. Speaking of the leftist mindset, I might do that. I'm kind of intrigued to do that video, so keep an eye out for that one. Other than that, guys, I've got to run. So thank you.
Go well, mate. Go well.
Okay, thank you. Right, bye.
AI, Mitch. Did either of you chaps have a specific thing you wanted to talk about this evening?
There was one thing I don't know if was going to talk about. Now, talk about the Tory party and everything. Now, this has been a bit of a weird one, a weird story, and I have a little theory on this, but which I'll run you by you guys. But in this week, there's been this story of a Conservative Party candidate for a council here in my neck of the woods, who up until about a year ago was I guess you could say like a white nationalist YouTuber and social media sort of fellow. Even like I think he was a self-described he referred to himself as a neo-Nazi. I'm not being like a leftist where I say, oh, he's a neo-Nazi. He actually did like refer to himself in that term, and he went by the moniker Crewkern Man, which is where he's from in Somerset, Crewkern. And I don't know if any of you guys or people chat have heard of him. I haven't really heard of him, but all he seems to have done recently is he will put together AI videos of like, previously it was like Kemi Badenoch and Nicki Minaj, like really soft
AI
content.
videos are so shit. They really are. Like, I watch a lot of history, and I keep getting suggested these AI videos, and you watch them, and what they do is in a 30-minute video they'll repeat themselves at least 3 or 4 times, because that's what AI does.
Yeah,
really tedious,
yeah. But with this story, basically what happened is he went to court. He was arrested because he targeted Luciana Berger, who was that Jewish Labour MP, again a few years ago. And he was accused of anti-Semitism, all that sort of stuff. And I think he went to prison. I actually think he went inside. And then he then denounced all his previous views, joined the Tory party, and even though he still does like the AI stuff, and I think he still runs his channel to a point, but he's sort of he's sort of gone. He's sort of like now supporting the Tory party. And the reason why this has become a story is he was selected as a candidate. He was open about, his prosecution and all that sort of stuff. And he's become this, this sort of storyline this week where you've had from Kemi Badenoch has stood by him, which is weird because I've never seen the Tory party stand by anybody like this. It is quite odd.
When you say Kemi Badenoch AI, you surely mean the Nigerian anchor baby.
Yeah, the Nigerian anchor baby, particularly on the accusations of anti-Semitism, and because she says, "Well, we're giving him a second. This is his second chance, and all that sort of stuff," which again is unusual. It's not heard of. But what's also is that the main sort of attack on this has been from the chief rabbi of the UK, and the Jewish Chronicle and all the other leading
I want to ask you something, AI, and also Mitch. Do you think that all of this? Look, we all know the Israel shills and the Zionist shills in our sphere. We all know them, and there are many. Yeah. Do we think, and I certainly do, by the way, that most of this outpouring against Rupert Lowe and Restore Britain is because he and Restore Britain have said they are going to ban halal and kosher slaughter? Because that's where I think most of this is coming from. What do you say, gentlemen?
Well, I mean, I don't really understand any of the attack, because Rupert Lowe has got Zionists in Restore. That there are Zionist people and very big
AI. But it is Restore policy to ban both halal and kosher slaughter, both of which, by the way, are cruel and against British animal welfare laws that were brought in the 19th fucking century, right? They're both cruel, and they should both be banned in Britain, which is a country in general that tries to treat animals in a civilized fashion. But I really believe that a lot of the anti-Rupert Lowe and anti-Restore Britain propaganda that we are getting at the moment from the so-called centre right, the Zionist right, the Israel shill right, is because Rupert Lowe and Restore Britain are committed to banning kosher slaughter. I really think that's true. But I mean, I'm asking you guys what you think.
It remains to be seen. I don't know. I think the reason why I brought up this Kruger man, just to answer your question, I think will be a cynical ploy, because if we've been honest now, across the West in the last few years, on the right, there has been sort of an awakening on that question, the question which we can't really talk about, but everyone knows it's in the air. It's been in the air for a bit, and the reason why Restore Britain had so much energy about it is they were signalling against, the Friends of Israel sort of grouping that you have in other parties. The reason why the Kruger man is an interesting thing is, I think Tories, I think I think reform would. There will be some, like you have the theory of like tactical bigotry, where they'll go after Muslims because it's the easy thing you can sort of target. I actually think there may even be like a, and this is going to sound mad, but you'll have like sloppy low, like the lowest form or the very low level anti-Semitism, which is performative. And I think, going back to your point though about Restore, if you notice about a lot of the figures in Restore, they don't necessarily talk about Israel much, but they are nationalists. And one thing, the biggest critics of a lot of the figures in Restore who have been critical of foreign influence, I think have been the ones where they've been attacked the most. And I think that is still the crunch point.
I don't disagree with you, but what I'm trying to say here, I guess, is that Rupert Lowe and Restore Britain have been genuinely pretty consistent and pro-British. Yeah, like on the right, we will often talk about the anti-jihad, for example. Yeah,
Yeah.
quite common. We'll talk about the anti-jihadist, and there are many of them. But don't get me wrong. I'm completely anti-Muslim. I'm not a Muslim. Don't want to be a Muslim, and don't think Muslim people should be in Britain or any Western white nation. But I'm also anti-Zionist. I wouldn't go so far as to say I'm anti-Israeli. I'm not really. I'm anti-Netanyahu for sure. But I'm not particularly anti-Jewish, but I am anti-Zionist. And to me, Rupert Lowe and Restore Britain's position of banning both kosher slaughter and halal slaughter is entirely consistent with British values, because Britain isn't deliberately cruel to animals. We never have been. Britain was the very first country in the world not only to stop slavery, but we were also the first country in the world to have laws about animal welfare, to stop people being vilely cruel to animals. This is why Britain is one of the most civilized nations in the whole world. And to me, Restore Britain's position on this stuff is entirely consistent. It's good. It's one reason I have some trust in these guys who run Restore Britain. But that was the point I was trying to make, AI.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're maybe going to disagree on this, but we'll wait and see with Restore when it comes to how it goes down. As I say, that we could be talking for a few months from now, and I know you've got people like Alistair Harrison and the people in the background who, and let's be honest, Alistair Harrison, who's been like the senior advisor of Restore, along with, and then you've got Henry Bolton and co. And Alistair Harrison was the one that led the campaign in Makerfield, and wanted didn't want the candidate there who was the one to speak and everything. And look, I have said on my channel before, I thought it was a really bad campaign. I thought it was quite. I think there was a lot of shenanigans.
I still think it was a pointless campaign. I don't know why they stood there, but whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was true as well. But more to the point, though, what did annoy me was, if you're going to campaign, you either do it properly or you don't do it at all, right? You either going to do it properly. And my problem with those figures.
Why do it at all in a seat you are not going to win? Restore was never going to win that seat. Labour was always going to win that seat. Why waste the energy on that? Why not use it to continue opening branches and what have you? But yeah, I thought it was pointless, to be honest.
Yeah, and it was a shame, because I think there was that a lot of resource could have gone elsewhere.
Their candidate wasn't that good either.
No, the candidate wasn't very good. I think they could have got a better person in there to campaign and debate or what have you. But I mean, at the end, I mean, Rupert he obviously wanted to do like an olive branch out to reform. They've rejected that, so I mean, we'll see how that goes. I will be honest though, and this is me just being straight honest.
Have they rejected it yet? I'm not sure. Not totally.
I think from hold on, Jude. The media, the people that done the response, the hit pieces on Restore, are the Reform media. These are the people.
Yeah, they're second rank. They're second rank Reform people. Yeah, but they are second rank Reform people.
Yeah, I mean, but at the end of the day, though, it was always going to be difficult, and to be honest, it is incredibly difficult to set up a political party, and more so, as I said right back along with, but when it announced that Restore was going to become a political party, um, you unfortunately, given the laws in this country, you cannot have a purely nationalist party in the way that we would understand it and want it.
I get what you're saying, but
Yeah.
my point is that what Rupert Lowe was offering was not a merger. People keep saying it's a merger. No, he never offered that. What he said was a deal. And I think that would be sensible, where Restore run candidates where they might win and Reform run candidates where they might win. And if you're a right-wing guy like all of us on this stream, you don't have to think about it. You just vote for whoever is your candidate in that part of the world. That, to me, would make perfect sense. But I think people are trying to complicate this, and they're trying to say, "Oh no, it's like a merger." That wasn't what Rupert Lowe said at all. He said we could do some sort of deal, and that would make absolute common sense, in my humble opinion. Anyway, Mitch, what do you think about that?
I mean, with Restore Britain, I've largely checked out of politics, so it's not as good. I mean, every 5 minutes you always get in. Every 5 minutes you always get in, like, internal infighting within Restore. Like, you have 1 minute Alistair Harrison who says one thing, and then Rupert Lowe says something a lot more boomerish, and it's just constant Groundhog Day. That's why I've largely checked out of it. For the time being,
that is a problem. It is the
message. AI, be careful. Your camera is coming on.
Oh yeah, whoops.
Yeah, your camera keeps coming on. Can I just say that Woodpit is correct? All right. The Reform will regret not doing a deal. Evola's sunglasses is correct. In the Reform may well regret not doing a deal, as even at 3%, Reform, he means Restore, can damage Reform. And actually, Restore are on more like 8%. But anyway. And as Woodpit says, if they did a deal, they would totally crush the Tories. The thing is, how many people in Reform UK really want to crush the Tories? That's a good question, I would say. Because I think the more likelihood is you'll end up with a Reform UK Tory deal, which will breathe life back into the zombie so-called Conservative Party. That's my worry.
I mean, also, unfortunately, the Tory party are still winning elections. They're still winning by-elections. They are still, there is still a baseline of support for them. And, again, it goes back to the disappointment of the British people that, unfortunately, there is still a subsection of Britain that would vote for them. While it's still the case, I think Reform and the Tories will arrange an electoral pack, and I think they will. What is it? I think they will go to the next general election like the I guess the Liberals and the SDP back in the 80s. There will be like some coalition electoral pack, and you'll have Farage and you'll have the Tories. I've also noticed, and this is another thing I'll bring back to Restore. I think the only arrangement that they will accept Restore and I'm going to be honest, I don't know how much bargaining room Restore has, because I don't know how.
They have a.
I mean,
They
they
have
could
a.
affect rough.
No. Yeah, they have a lot, because I actually think that Restore could stop Reform winning in a lot of seats. They really could.
Yeah, that they could. I think the negotiating point, and I think this would be the, you know, I imagine Reform would tell Rupert and his team, we could deal with you or have some sort of agreement, but on the condition that, and I think this may have already happened based on what I'll be saying in a minute, but the ethno nationalists, the actual like ethno nationalist types, have to be effectively ousted, and then
No,
we can
I
elevate
don't.
someone like Carl Benj.
I don't agree with
I think
that.
it's obvious.
AI. I don't
It's
agree with it.
happened.
No,
It's
hang
happened.
on.
It's stupid.
AI.
Listen, it's happened.
AI.
It's happened
How?
this week. How can
Who?
you? It's how you've got
Who's been ousted?
media hit pieces.
Who's been
You've got
ousted?
media hit piece. You got media hit piece after media
Right.
hit piece,
Yeah,
right?
useless
On Harrison
mainstream media.
Pitt.
Okay.
Yeah, well, you say useless. They're like it's the mainstream. You just said it's the mainstream. You
I
got
don't.
hit piece, okay,
Who?
on
Who has been
on
ousted?
Harrison Pitt. You got hit piece on the Harrison Pitt, on also I guess you could say Connor Tomlinson, but I don't, he's not really having much of a hit piece.
Yeah,
But you also
you don't like Connor Tomlinson, I know, AI. But who has been ousted? Connor Tomlinson's not part of Restore Britain.
well, he's been going around. He's been going around saying he's the director of communications for the last
Not that
few
I've
weeks,
heard he
few
hasn't.
months.
Not that I've heard.
That's what he said. That's what he's been saying
All right,
during the by-election he had.
You will need to give me a clip of that, mate, because I haven't seen it.
I remember him saying it during the by-election that he was like he said he was directing communications. That's why.
Send me a clip and then I'll apologize, but I have not seen that.
But you have Carl Benjamin now, who's been on all the established, again, the mainstream media, the same ones doing the attack.
Well, the one who started the
Express,
liberal,
the Mail.
You mean the one who started the liberalists?
Yeah, and also he is like kind of like a very visible supporter of Restore as well.
Sure,
I mean, let's not forget that he
completely untrustworthy, but I think more untrustworthy than Connor Tomlinson, to be honest. But whatever.
Yeah, probably. But so
I'd point out
that
I would point out that Connor Tomlinson is mates with people like the guy who did the debate with Big Tits Julia Hartley Brewer, etc. He's mates with those people, and Charlie Downs doesn't say, "Oh no, I don't like Connor." He never does. So and I think he would if Connor was doing something bad, to be honest, because I think Charlie's a pretty honest bloke. I don't know about you guys.
Well, I mean, Connor is, he's sort of straddled quite a thin line, I think, within like Restore and within that sort of group, and he's sort of like placed himself well. He's not sort of like got himself where he's angered one side or the other. But yeah, I mean, look, we'll see how this goes.
Ivola's sunglasses says Charlie Downs, Harrison Pitt not going anywhere. And on what do you base that, Ivola's sunglasses? Frankie HRA, I'm very skeptical of Connor. Listen, I'm a bit skeptical of Connor. I am. I don't totally think he's correct. I thought his trip to Israel was very ill-advised. But as far as I can work out, that's the main reason people don't like him. But anyway,
Well,
I-
I mean, he did. I mean, he was kind of balls deep in the Tory party. What was it? It was the Policy Research Department only a few years ago. I mean, so was. I mean, so was
the
Charlie
AI,
Downs. So I mean, it's not like
AI,
yeah.
AI, right? I am not impinging on you at all here. I'm not suggesting that you are not an honest and good man, but to be fair, you are called AI Shire Tory, and you did spend some of your earlier years trying to, get into the Tory party. So we all make mistakes, okay?
True, but I mean, as I will say, I never became policy wonk for and the thing was he was pushing a year ago, mind you, he was pushing a year ago the likes of Liz Truss as Connor Tomlinson, that is, was pushing Liz Truss as like a figure to sort of get behind. So
Fair
you
enough.
know,
Fair enough. Like I said, we all
while
we
that's
make
true,
mistakes.
yeah, I mean, since
I
I
mean,
left the Tory
I
party,
wasn't. I've got to say, I wasn't happy when Liz Truss was removed for the Indian Rishi Sunak. I wasn't happy with that. I thought that was yet another sign of the Conservatives just being shitbags, basically.
I mean, I left the Conservative Party because of lockdowns. It was 2020. I left. I left it because of the response to lockdowns, and that was my main. I mean, it was sort of before Boris Wave, but I guess you could say I say Boris Wave because it all happened at the same time, right? It all culminated in the same time and space. Um, and I think for my part, I've not I've not sort of slipped back. I haven't tried to encourage people to go back or anything. I've been relatively, I even I mean I think I've been honest in my assessment of the Tory party.
No.
I don't think they got I got
AI. I like you and you're my mate, and I don't think you've ever been dishonest at all. But my point is, what Woodpit says here. At one stage, we were almost all Tories and Republicans, and they fucked us over basically. So yes, of course, we changed. So I'm not having a go at you, AI, at all. I'm just saying that the mere fact that somebody used to be a conservative is hardly a reason we can cut them off from the right way of thinking. That would be stupid.
okay. Yeah, fair enough. I mean, yeah, sure. But at the same
But
time,
I mean,
I
all I
would just
listen. I know Mitch, right? Mitch at one stage was a bit of a tanky, for God's sake. Do I hold that against him? No, because you grow up, you learn more, and you change.
true, true. But
That's my point.
I think it comes down to, I mean, like, if I talk to you, Duke, or talk to Mitch, I can tell, like, none of you, like Mitch, you're not a tanky now, and Duke, I can tell you're definitely not, a Tory party supporter or anything like
No,
that. We can all
no.
and we can talk, but the thing though is, as I say, there's a few people who say they have switched and have but they still in my mind, I don't think they have. I think what happens is there's a petty because these people, right, they're not like us. I mean, if we're speaking politically in political parties, we would be, and I was relative. I didn't have a patron. I didn't have like a nice cushy sort of network behind me or part of me to think. People like Connor and the co, they were deep when I say deep, they were in like the policy exchange of the
Oh, look,
Conservative
look,
Party, the
look, look.
CPF, and the
This
stuff like that.
guy,
You know,
AI. Look, obviously, people like Connor Tomlinson, and also I have to say, people like Carl Benjamin, etc., are obviously much more deeply embedded in the politics and journalism of what is going on in Westminster, etc., than we are. This is absolutely true, right? Carl Benjamin started the Liberalists, which I thought was the biggest wank there ever was. But he's found success with the lower seas, and largely because he's got a good group of guys behind him, he is rightly successful. Do I still think that Carl Benjamin at heart is a liberal? Yeah, I do. And I'm not. I'm not a liberal. I'm sorry. Not at all. I'm way to the right of Carl Benjamin. But Carl Benjamin, for now, is supporting Rupert Lowe and Restore Britain. Do I think that Rupert Lowe is a far right guy? No, he's not, because he's a boomer, right? He's much more of a boomer than I am. But I do think he's probably a patriot. I do think he regards the British people as worth preserving. We've got to get on the right. We have got to get more nuanced about these things and more sensible. I just think that's true. Like, Connor Tomlinson is not on the same level as, say, Tommy Robinson, who's a total Israel shill, who pay all his legal bills, etc. Or the what's that gay guy, Douglas Murray. Douglas Murray, total Israel shill and a neocon, really. Like, Connor Tomlinson is not on the level of those two guys. Not at all, in my opinion. Is he looking out for himself? Is he thinking, well, I'm going to be a dad of two little girls soon and I want to have a career? Sure. And he would be insane if he didn't. You've got to look at that,
no, you're right, and for me, I've just did a video on my channel recently. I'm not going to be talking about politics now because number one, I not in the sense that I have in the past, because I think number one, all of it's outside of our control anyway. That now it's really outside of our control of what goes on inside, Westminster and forms of politics, if it ever has been, and which I don't think it has. But I think also now it's kind of I don't say pointless, but there's really nothing we can do now. I don't think, in the sense of, like, party politics itself, it's just going to be what it's going to be, isn't it, really?
Well, we can give good
and
advice. I hope we can give reasonably good advice, at least. That's what I hope we can do. The point of these streams is that people watch them and get a better idea of what is actually going on. Than they will get if they watch Channel 4 and the Biased Brainwashing Corporation or whatever, At least that's my point anyway. That's why I do these streams. Is I want more and more people in Britain to realize what's actually going on in politics, rather than what the lies that the mainstream media tell you. If you believe the mainstream media, you probably think that Nurse Lucy Letby killed 9 babies or whatever it was supposed to be, rather than the NHS is such a fucked up organization. The baby unit she worked in had raw sewage going into the sinks there, and probably nobody killed anyone. It was just the NHS fucked up because the National Health Service is vile and useless and mostly not British anymore. But, you know, whatever. Mitch, what's your opinion on this stuff?
Well, on the Lucy Letby stuff.
No, on everything else. The Lucy Letby stuff was just because I watched an excellent video called The Botched Trials of Lucy Letby. And if you don't think that little British nurse was fucking conned and sent to prison for life for not very much and on very bad evidence or no evidence, go watch that video. You can find it on YouTube.
Well, didn't you used to have arguments with like John from Worcester Club about it because he believed that she was guilty. I can't remember what his arguments were. He said something along the lines of, what was it? I mean, we know the NHS is shit.
Yes.
Literally and metaphorically shit. So I'm never. That's the thing. We live in such a world where we're never surprised by anything these days. That's the thing about the world we live in.
But I do think this young chick of like in her late 20s, I think she's been sent to prison for life for something she probably didn't do. I do think that's true. And I
wouldn't be surprised if it's a matter of she herself is guilty of some things, but she's getting far more
I'm sure
than what she otherwise should do because the NHS is covering arse.
Yeah, but I don't think she killed any babies deliberately. I don't.
Okay, but
she could have one.
She could have killed one of them inadvertently, and she's took a prison time for that. But that doesn't cancel out the fact that the NHS is still covering arse. That's the point.
Well, you know, like there were two doctors on her ward, right, who were supposed to do, because it was a premature baby unit, they were supposed to do 2 rounds a day, like morning and afternoon. They were supposed to go and examine these premature babies. In fact, they did 2 a week. And one of them was an Indian. And the Indian was one of the main guys who got her convicted. What's the price?
I'm not being... I have to... It's like, for example, my local dentist, right? My area is like 90 to 95% white. It's still getting a lot more biased with immigration, but still it's pretty white. All our dentists are either Indian or Belarusian. Meanwhile, all the nurses happen to be British. Like, it's such a jarring thing where, I'm not saying, it's stuff like that. Like, everyone knows around here that this is artificial. This is not natural to have all the dentists in a 95% white town. For all of them, pretty much should be Indian. Like, everyone knows that's artificial. That's not. That didn't come about.
Look, just to answer people in the chat, I've had a couple of girlfriends who were nurses, and nurses are generally really good people. Because you don't become a nurse if you're not. It's a hard job, and you're taking care of people. And obviously, most nurses are women because women are good at that. I have a lot of time for nurses, and I think they get a bad deal versus doctors.
Well, one of my problems we've got is like 2011. Basically, the Tory government stopped recruiting nurses from Europe, from countries like Finland and Germany. Because Diane Abbott complained about it. She said, "Oh well, why aren't we hiring more black people?" So when you're thinking of all the medical staff we're getting from shitholes like Nigeria and India, you can thank Diane Abbott because she complained about it.
Yeah. Look, guys, I'm going to be quite honest. The love of my life was a nurse with a master's degree who was intensive care nurse, and she could do anesthesia and all this shit. She was very highly qualified, and she was, as I say, the love of my life. But was she badly treated by doctors? A lot, yeah, she was. You know,
I mean,
but
that's always been my way for history. Though, was it doctors? I mean, so you can read about the First World War, where you look at the Eastern Front of World War One. Like, if you were a nurse in Eastern Front in World War One, you were just treated horribly. But especially in the Austro-Hungarian army, but that can be tough for sure. But yeah, it's just a matter of.
But anyway, look, this is really not what I was talking about. The point is, I think Lucy Letby absolutely deserves a new trial. Her conviction is totally unsafe. There is no evidence that anyone killed any of the premature babies in that ward, except the lack of funding in the NSS. That's what killed the babies in that ward. And there's a Welsh doctor guy who made it his business to try and, for some reason, send this poor girl to prison for life. Don't know why. Probably just an arsehole. There are loads of them around, sadly.
Well, you got to factor the NHS. You got to factor the NHS hierarchy. They've probably got a similar attitude towards themselves as, when you look at the Soviet nuclear industry back in the 80s.
Yeah, pretty much like that, Mitch. You know those guys who at Chernobyl were given like 60 seconds to chuck shit over the wall when they were conscripts? It's pretty much like that, mate. I agree.
So, do you remember Harold Shipman? You know, the one that was the serial killer doctor who murdered like all those was it elderly people, wasn't it?
Yeah.
One thing that you get sometimes with these sorts of people, particularly like murderers, is one tactic they'll do is try and blame or pin it on someone else. Now, I'm not saying this happened with Lucy Letby, but I think it's worth investigating how that angle as well.
Oh, listen, look, the only defense expert witness was not a doctor or anything. It was a plumber. And this plumber, in the Lucy Letby case, said, I was repeatedly in that unit week after week after week because raw sewage was going into the unit because the hospital didn't have the money to fix it. And there is no evidence whatsoever, really, that Lucy Letby killed anyone. And even when they say, oh, she was always on duty when one of these babies died, that's not true either. Because if you look at the number of babies that died in that unit, and sadly there were loads, because premature babies do quite frequently die, particularly when they get raw sewage in their little unit. In fact, the cops cut it off as it suited them. And so if you looked at all the babies that died in that unit when Lucy Letby worked there, there were many babies who died who she wasn't on duty at the time. So she couldn't possibly have had anything to do with it. And then they go on about, oh, she went out with a doctor and she did a joke with one of her nurse mates that she was going commando, which means you're not wearing knickers or panties or whatever you want to call them. She was a young chick. Isn't she allowed to do that? I'm sorry. It's just bullshit. I honest, go and check out. It's a YouTube channel, and it's I think it's Lucy Letby Films, but it's called The Botched Trials of Lucy Letby. And if you watch that movie and you still think this poor woman should spend the rest of her life in jail, I think you're insane. And raw biscuits, yes, that's exactly my opinion. That's
I
exactly
mean,
my opinion.
the I think probably the most obvious question marks, and I would say, maybe again, this is why John at the Worcester Club, I was, and he knows this because we've talked about the hysteria around Diane Abbott, all the nonsense, if you remember, in the United States years and years ago with who was that American footballer that was accused of killing his wife, who did, let's be honest, killed his wife and
Oh
her
yeah,
friend.
yeah.
Um,
Well, he probably
yeah,
did
yeah.
actually, but
Well, yeah, it did, but because the media, because his legal team were relatively savvy, they managed to operate this race narrative that got him off effectively. He just got off because the blacks hate whitey. Um, I forget his name now, but yeah, he was like a
can I just
footballer.
say to raw biscuits, it's in the Discord, mate. I've already put it up.
Yeah. Oh, OJ Simpson, that was it. OJ Simpson, yeah.
Yeah.
And
But yeah,
it,
the Lucy Letby thing is in the Discord. I did put it up. Sorry, AI, carry on.
But yeah, I was what I was saying was that if you remember but even before the trial, you had, I mean, and you have like this whole thing. I mean, this is where it was ridiculous. When Anne Widdecombe, when her murder investigation was going on, we were told by Devon and Cornwall, Counter Terror, and Special Branch, and all the other police forces that were investigating the South Yorkshire, that we mustn't speculate, mustn't talk about because it could jeopardize the trial. But yet, when Lucy Letby went on trial for even before her actual like first appearance in court, there were countless interviews of people at the hospital, small documentaries, programs, TV programs, debates on podcasts by establishment, figures on like the establishment podcast network, say basically just condemning her as guilty and like this sinister white nurse, and how that she was able to use like low level white privilege to get away with this, and it was complete mad. It was complete madness. And if I'm absolutely honest, before I even heard um anything, and I was open minded right before I heard any details about her or anything like that. I thought, oh, it could be a case of like another Harold Shipman. You never know with this sort of stuff. But as soon as I saw all this play out in the media, I knew near enough immediately that there was something wasn't right here. And then of course Peter Hitchens, who's been quite a good source on this, on Lucy Letby case. She was condemned by the media, and there was no way she was going to get a fair trial. And I do think it was because ultimately there was a systematic failure in the NHS, and they basically used her as a patsy, as a scapegoat, and there probably
Yeah,
was
and of
yeah.
course they pick a white nurse girl. That if she'd have been like African or Indian or Pakistani, there's no way she would have been prosecuted. Not a chance.
No, and
Not a chance.
it does seem no, and there was like really vicious, bizarre personal attacks. That she was into like child things, like, and it's just like like she had like dolls and stuff at her house, and it's like, well, I mean, that's not that unusual for
I don't
particularly
know.
young women. It's not.
AI, every girlfriend I've ever had at least one doll from when she was a little girl. Every
Yeah,
one.
it's not. It's not like
Some of them
unusual.
had teddy bears and shit they had since they were like 7.
Yeah, but that, and then they had like this whole diary, which was completely inadmissible because there was nothing. I mean, but that became like the whole like a media crunch point of like her admitting it through her diary.
Which she
But I mean, at
didn't.
the end,
But
which she didn't, because there was nothing in there. I also think because she did have, I mean, I think she does, and I think it's somewhat admitted by her family and friends. She does have like a few, she's. I think she's classed will be classed as vulnerable. Let's just put it like that. She is like a classed as somewhat vulnerable, and
Her
maybe
her
she
be-
has a few.
her best friend, who has known her since they were at school together, says she is the kindest person she's ever known. And think about it this way, Ariel. If you were an evil bitch, why on earth would you go into her field of work? You just wouldn't, you know? There are better things you could go do. It's like it's stupid, basically. It's really stupid. And even things like the Indian doctor who said, "Oh, I walked in behind Lucy and she was standing there just looking at this child who was in trouble." We now know that on his timings, Lucy Leppy wasn't even in that ward at the time. Couldn't have been. There might have been some other white British blonde girl in there, but it wasn't Lucy. And we know that now. It was just a fucking lie, basically. And this guy has been shown to be a liar many times. Like, as I said, the main doctors in charge of that premature baby ward were supposed to do rounds every morning and every afternoon. In fact, they only did them once every 2 weeks. Now, who's to blame for how many babies die there? The poor little nurses or the fucking doctors, who are paid like, 5 times more money, by the way.
It is interesting. The thing is, like, there is enough. I mean, I would say there's enough evidence now. I mean, quite frankly, in any other with any other person with any other
She
trial,
should get a new
there
trial.
at the least, at the very least, right? I mean, I think, I mean, she wouldn't have been done anyway because there was no evidence. There just simply was no evidence
Yeah, there
apart
wasn't,
from
and much of it, was a
media.
lie.
It was the media.
Yeah,
Well, much of it was just a total like coordination by the media, and what it did remind me of was how you had race hucksters in this country who were very much pushing this as well. If you remember back in
of
just
course,
before she was found
because she
guilty.
was a white blonde girl. Let's do the evil white blonde girl,
Yeah, you had like these race hucksters, but also it reminded me of like Derek Chauvin and that Asian guy with George Floyd. You know, basically these guys, these two police officers back in 2020 they were basically thrown in prison by the state, used as patsies for like the BLM riots, which then engulfed America and then sort of spread its way here. All because some black guy OD'd on nearby there where they were standing, and particularly by Derek Chauvin, who happened to be the arresting officer because this black guy was
Yeah,
like spazzing out on drugs, and then
he
it's very.
he absolutely deserves life in prison, because the bloke, he was trying to get into his police car, wouldn't get into his police car, and had taken God knows how many drugs. It's fucking insane,
Yeah,
mate.
it really is, and it's kind of like, I mean, I remember saying to a friend of mine at the time when this happened in this country, who was joining the police, and I said to him, he's no longer in the police force, but I said to him at the time, I said, what happens if like you're like the British version of Chauvin? You happen to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, where there's like some media op going on, because he was relatively like, he was relatively I guess you could say like clued in on a lot of this stuff that we talk about on our side of things. He understands like media manipulation, all that sort of stuff. What happens if you're on that side of it, like where you become like a patsy, and then you end up, because no matter how much protesting or professing of innocence or trying presenting of evidence, it's like if you are guilty, if you're in the sights of the media, legal, and bear in mind the government turned on Lucy Letby as well. There was a whole like system, the British state against you. There is no recourse. There is no justice. You can't get any justice.
No, I agree. I'll be honest, AI. I think Lucy Letby is innocent, and she's in jail for nothing. And she's in jail to cover up for the vile NHS failings, basically. That's my own opinion. They're going to get this young woman in her 20s and keep her in jail for, I don't know, however long it'll take her to die. And they're doing it merely to cover up for the fact that the NHS didn't have enough money to go and stop sewage going into its premature baby wards, basically. And also because a Welsh doctor decided, for whatever reason, probably because he's an evil cunt, I suspect, that he wanted to put this young woman in prison. I think the prosecutor was an arsehole. The judge was pretty poor, it has to be said. She deserves a retrial at very least. At very least. It's not a safe conviction.
I mean, the judge should have immediately thrown the trial on the basis of that the interference of the media, that the jury could not be, you couldn't have a fair jury.
AI, more than that, AI, another judge, right, sent the judge in the Lucy Letby trial, I think it was an email, but a message anyway, saying that Welsh doctor who was absolutely convinced that she'd done it, and wrongly so, and if you watch the video we've been talking about, you'll see why he was wrong. But another judge sent to the judge in the Lucy Letby trial that this dude is not a fair witness, and all of these opinions are worthless. That's literally what he said to him. Another judge. And the judge in the Letby trial just ignored it. I mean, I don't know. Lucy Letby just strikes me as a typical British girl who probably is very kind to children and dogs and animals, and because most girls are. I think she was railroaded, and the police investigation was shit and very biased. Yeah, she deserves a new trial. That's my opinion. We've lost Mitch. All right. Thanks, Mitch, for coming on. Please go and look up Mitch History as a channel. Mitch does lots of American Civil War stuff and all that sort of thing.
I'll be on his channel this coming Friday. This coming the next week. I'll be on his channel Friday.
What's the stream you're doing, AR?
It's on the history of East Germany, the DDR.
Okay, well that'll be interesting. AI, would you like to plug your channel while you're here?
Yes, certainly. AI Shiatori or William Grenville. And yeah, I was going to say this coming week I haven't really got much going on my channel, but I'll be back here with you. We'll do the part 2 on Drake's expedition.
Yeah, that'll be
Particularly this
cool. I'm
time, yeah.
looking forward to that. Anyway.
Yeah. And we'll be doing this will be the second part. So in this part, you will have more. It will have Drake and his epic raiding and seizing of Spanish galleons and raiding Spanish cities along the Pacific coast of the Spanish Empire and the Americas, and of course his famous landing in North California, which he dubbed as the colony of Novo Albion, New Albion.
I don't
And
think we want it anymore, AI. I don't think we want it anymore, really.
it is very picturesque. One thing I will say,
Yeah, I
Jake.
know, but it's very left wing as well.
Well, I don't. I thought North California was relatively Republican. I thought that was like the whole thing. It was only like the
Yeah, there are
South.
bits. Yeah, some of the South is fairly Republican too, I think.
Yeah, I guess it'd be like Los Angeles and San Francisco, isn't it? Really, around
Yeah,
that area would be
it's
very
the gay
Democrat.
seas, yeah. The
Yeah.
gay feminist seas, for sure. AI, your channel, sir.
Oh yeah. AI Shia Tory and William Grenville. Yeah, do check it out.
Yeah, go for that, guys. People have been asking about this Lucy Letby stream. Go and check out the botched trials of Lucy Letby. Put that into search on YouTube and you'll find it. Or if you follow me on X, it's on my X account. So yeah, you can go and do those things. I think Lucy Letby is probably innocent and has spent, I think, already 5 years in prison for no reason. Because I don't think she killed anyone. I think it was a lie. But whatever, we'll see. We will be back on Wednesday with AI, and we're going to be looking at Drake's circumnavigation of the world. Drake was the first Englishman to sail all around the world, well, of course, with his officers and crew. That'll be interesting. And in due course, I'm going to have a part 2 of Hope Not Hate with Atman and probably also with where was I? Gotta look this up now.
Was it Horus you were going to have it with?
Horus. Yeah, I think Horus wants to join us because he knows some of the links between the British government and the vile, disgusting, lying organization that is Hope Not Hate. So, yeah,
I did catch up with that. Well, by the way, the following day afterwards, the entire stream, and what is I did actually look into what was it, the Welling riots and that sort of that real rat-faced that rat-faced individual who made the claims of he was involved with some sort of hit against these, like, in this library. And what is kind of
the
interesting,
guy who'd never been punched, AI, you could see, look, he'd never been in a fight in his life. Absolutely, definitely never been hit.
I'm pretty certain a woman could probably beat him up. If I'm
Exactly.
If an average woman on the street could beat him up. But the thing is, I actually did, because I know you guys looked into it as well, and I think Ataman looked into it. There is literally no record, even on old police records, of that ever happening. And believe me, bearing in mind this was at the same time as a lot of the race relation stuff going into full overdrive, in police forces just before, of course, the Stephen Lawrence or around the time of Stephen Lawrence. If this happened, it would have been national, probably even
Yeah,
international.
it
Maybe not.
was bollocks. AI, it
It
was
was bollocks.
bollocks. It never happened.
But the funny
Oh,
thing is, Stu,
we
it's
broke
very.
in there. We broke in there and stamped on people's faces. Sure, okay.
But what's quite interesting is it's very similar to something that did happen in a book, right? And that
Mhm.
book which was popularized by a film of the same name, which came out probably around that time or that time period, called American History X, which people probably are aware of the
So
of that.
nothing to. So even the fictional book had nothing to do with Britain then.
No, and in that there is a scene where a group of the skinheads or what have you,
Yeah,
they break into I think it's a supermarket, but it's a similar thing, and they end up stamping on like
AI, let me
brown
ask you,
women.
right? AI, I know you are a intelligent dude, right? How many Pakistani Muslim political meetings have women in them, do you think?
Well, but back in the 90s, zero, and today definitely zero, because they don't. They
Yeah,
don't. That's
yeah,
just
of
that's
course not.
that. If you look at old clips from like Naz Shah or that Baroness Varsi from the 90s, where there
Women,
was.
AI, right? Women are pretty good dancers, yeah?
Yeah.
But in Pakistani, and in fact, many Muslim cultures outside of the harem, women are not allowed to dance. Only men can dance. So if you look, and you can go and check this up on YouTube if you want to, guys, go for it. Yeah. In Pakistani culture, for example, and many of the worst Muslims in Britain are Pakistanis. Women are not allowed to dance. You can watch men dancing if you want. I mean, personally, I don't want to, but you can if you're gay, and many Muslims are fairly gay. But women dancing, no, it's not allowed. Women are not allowed to do fuck all in Pakistani culture, basically. Really, you know.
But also, I mean, demographically speaking, I don't know. I think it was Atman raised it as well. Wellingham back in what 19? What was this? 1990s, or something like that. When this took place, I doubt there was even enough to fill a room back then in that area. I doubt there was even enough to, there was a large enough of population to even be present.
I I have no idea about that, mate. To be honest, I really don't. I listen. I'm desperately. I've been trying for years now to get a New Zealander to join my Discord, but I haven't managed to do so yet. Anyway, guys, we will be back on Wednesday with part 2 of Sir Francis Drake's circumnavigation of the world, which of course helped him become the great sailor who helped to defeat the Spanish Armada, which was several hundred years ago yesterday, I think. I think so. Anyway, never let the bastards grind you down, guys, because they try constantly with their mainstream media and their TV shows and their movies and their adverts and their education. They're constantly trying to destroy you. Don't fall for it. You know, best guys in the world, obviously the British. Second best guys in the world, white people generally. Everybody else, apart from the Japanese, who I give a bit of a pass to, mostly crap. But anyway, go all, guys, and we'll see you on Wednesday. And please subscribe to the channel and give the stream a like. That would be good.